Hey everyone, welcome to Hope for Survival YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to our new subscribers and welcome to the preparedness journey, preparing us for the unknown of tomorrow. In this video, I had several questions of subscribers and Hope for Survival members who messaged me, and they asked me to do a video talking about the 5 mile radius in further detail. And I will try to do so to the best that I can in a short video, keeping in mind that this is basically a 15 to 20 minute or so video summarizing the concept of the 5 mile radius. The actual 5 mile radius class in full is about a 3-hour class, so it's impossible to cover it here. And in reality, to really dig into some of the areas and concepts, it's probably more towards 5 hours. But we're going to try to give you the basis of it here. If you have not purchased my 2 Hope for Survival books, How Preparing Food, Water, Shelter, and Security Can Save Your Life and the Mindset, you can do so at hopeforsurvival.com. There's a place you can order the books, and also the Hope for Survival thumb drive, which is basically a digital filing cabinet where you can scan and put all your important papers on the thumb drive. So if you have to leave your home in an emergency in the middle of the night, you can grab the thumb drive or have it stored in a secure place so that you don't lose important deeds, diplomas, pictures, banking information, wills, deeds, and so forth. So it's something to consider. All right, so let's get started. So if you haven't read the book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, I would strongly encourage it. It's a book that I have given out many copies to at in-person training classes and events. It's an easy read, couple hours, but it's a brilliant book, and it's so good that it's often used at the War College for military officers. But basically, every battle is won before it is fought, and this is very true. It's how much time you spend preparing and doing your homework against your foe. Okay, and that could be uh, many different foes. And in the 5 mile radius, we're basically talking about um, any potential threat and what is the most likely scenario that you would face. And this is all determined by your risk assessment based on your environment and intelligence and factors, your capabilities, and where you're vulnerable, and how you're going to mitigate those threats. Okay, how you're going to offset them, how you're going to change them, how you're going to get around them, or do you need to change your plan to a better plan where you can better face what possible threats you are. Okay, so recently, we've probably all noticed over the last few years, you've gone out to restaurants and other locations, and the workers, they can't count money, they can't count change. Most recently, Miss Lucy and I was in a store over near the Virginia-Tennessee state lines, and we asked the question um, because the answer to it was important as to which state we were in and which tax code would apply to our purchase, which percentage of state taxes would apply to the purchase. And we asked the coworker if we were in Virginia or Tennessee because we were so close to the state line. And the worker looked at us with the deer in the headlight look, and she stated, "I don't know what state we're in." Okay, this um, this goes to the mindset. All right, and we're seeing this more and more and more as time goes on of folks going through functioning in life, and they're total oblivious to their surroundings. All right. In the 5 mile radius, the mindset is critical in how we go about doing our day-to-day business and how we prepare for potential declines or breakdowns in society. So, what is the 5 mile radius theory and concept? So, basically, when Hope for Survival started over 7 years ago, we were focusing on the individual, family, and community. Okay. And it devised from building a process to where you could basically strengthen and fortify your family, your home, and those around you. All right. And in that, it's pushing the threat further and further away from you. All right. And this is part of in the security class that I've mentioned in some of the videos previously, the 5 Ds of security. And that's deter, detect, deny, delay, and defend. And all 5 Ds are part of the process in the 5 mile radius. Okay. And we talk about pushing the threat away from you out to a further distance. We're talking about deterring the threat. Okay. And this, by deterring the threat, it includes the fourth step, which is detect. So you're deterring the threat, but it's also detecting the threat. So if you have a 5 mile radius or a 4 mile radius, a 1 mile radius, or a 5,000 yard radius, you're deterring it away from you, but it's also detecting that there's a potential problem. So the 5 mile radius theory and concept, the theory is building security in depth to 500 yards, 5,000 yards, one building, one block, a neighborhood, street, or the entire neighborhood, a mile or 5 miles. It could be your farm, multiple farms, a mile or 5 miles. Gathering and collecting information, it is a process. It takes time and it takes work. It's not black and white, and it must be analyzed and determine what risk you face from the threat. Okay, I mentioned it's a risk assessment, all right? And how are you going to manage the risk that you assess from what you determine from that information? Information may be fresh, old, third word, first person, historical, or immediate. How you process it, then apply it is likely the determining factor to keep your community a hard target. Our goal is to always be a hard target, not a soft target. Statistically, threats to you, unless it is personal, a threat to you when you're a hard target, most often the person or people who are the threat to you, when you're a hard target, they're going to move on to find a soft target. So your job is to push the threat as far from you as possible. You may still have threats close by. Identify them now to gain the upper hand when things tank. Who's the patriot? Who may be armed? Who has food? Who can you trust? Have you vetted them? Who would you want to be on your team and near your family? When threats are near, liberal and or conservatives will team together to save their families. You may say, well, I'm a conservative. Why would I want a liberal? Folks, your neighbors are your neighbors. Okay? You need to learn to come to a neutral understanding or ability to talk together and work together, because they're your neighbor today, and if things tank tomorrow, they're still going to be your neighbors. Every home and family on your team pushes your radius outward. You can invest now or you can pay later. So something to understand up front, it's really important, is the rule of law and without rule of law and the use of force policy. Okay, the rule of law is when law enforcement and the justice system are available to enforce existing laws. You need to determine and understand in the community where you work if you have a conservative sheriff and system or if you have a liberal sheriff and system. This is going to go a long way in your planning and your actions. Without rule of law, it's also available law enforcement, courts, and justice systems, but they no longer respond or are available to support and defend existing laws. Knowing the importance of and establishing your family or community use of force policy or a force continuum for everyone to follow is critical. When an event surfaces where the use of force is required and it appears you know the threat, would this change your use of force policy in any way? I know, and I often hear comments of basically, I will just shoot them. Well, that brings consequences. Okay. This is why it's so important that you understand what type system is in your town and in your county and in some cases your state. Family and community leaders must understand and know when to switch from rule of law to without rule of law and what the change implies and what it requires. I mentioned risk management earlier. So many things in preparedness and in life, but in preparedness requires a risk assessment and risk management. So you're assessing what the problem is, you're evaluating it, you're managing it, you're measuring it. How is it going to impact you? And if it's a threat to you, how are you going to mitigate that threat? So as an example, you can be in urban, suburban, or rural communities, all right? And the radius around you could be either of the three. So if you look here, you live in the block that's highlighted with yellow, all right? All the apartments around you are red. That's your created radius, one by one. Or in suburbia, the homes and streets around you, pushing them out from you to push the threat further away from you. Or if you live rural, you can see the yellow block around a farm and the farms around you that you build your radius around. This pushes the threat further away from you, and it also builds a bond of support to aid one another. So you can either have this. So which of these would you prefer? This is a suburbia neighborhood, and you can see the red arrow pointing to a black vehicle sitting in front of a home. This vehicle drove right up to the home, and that could be your home, and it's now 25 yards from your front door. Or you can start building your 5-mile radius outward, okay? And this is to deter that black vehicle from pulling right up to your front door. And by setting up, you can see the red border line several streets out. But you can have people that are part of your 5-mile radius that become the eyes and ears of protecting your community. And you can see here, this is a without rule of law. You have neighbors in your neighborhood who would be foot patrols, walking the streets, just checking on things. You can have a mobile vehicle, and you can even plan for an entry control point coming into your community. And in the center, you see where, if someone is injured during a without rule of law, where you would render first aid or medical attention by someone who is certified to do so. And to the left of the tent, you have a security tent or security location. It may be in a garage. And to the left of the security person in the center, you have somewhere that you run your communications out of to communicate with designated neighbors who are part of your communication plan. Okay. So the 5 mile radius is basically a big plan, and so many of your smaller plans that are important fit into this: your food plan, your communication plan, your water plan, your security plan, your emergency plans. All these plans feed into your 5 mile radius plan. So one of the things that I do, and I would encourage you to do, is you need to set up what's local, national, and global events. Okay, there's so many events that happen outside of your 5 mile radius that may impact you at ground level, or they may not impact you at ground level. And you need to determine them so that you don't waste time. I see so many people who are wasting time on events that have absolutely no impact on their local community. So on the outer green ring, that's global. I've listed threats as war, food shortages, pandemics, economic issues from economic potential crash or EMP. National level events could be civil war, government or economic collapse, riots, anarchy, pandemic, unemployment, gangs, food shortages, and global events that are impacting us nationally. And then in the red ring, your 5 mile radius, your 5 mile range, it could be unemployment that is being caused by things from local, or it could be from your yellow ring, which is national, or your green ring, which is global. Okay. Um, Car accidents with injuries. What does that have to do with national or global? Well, it doesn't. But a car accident that unemploys you or a loved one when you're depending on their income, that can impact your way of life within your 5 mile radius. Okay. It could be fires, weather, home invasions, gangs, local riots, protests, anarchy, or anything from your national and global events. So, welcome to Realville, and this is the Realville threat matrix. Realville would be your location. So, just as an example, the top 5 that would be listed, global, national, and local, based off of the previous green, yellow, and red circles. Global would be threats of war, food shortage, EMP, CME, solar flares, global economic monetary crash to achieve digital currency, or a new pandemic. National level, you can see government instability from political party division and national uprising, economic monetary system crash, the Great Reset, potential for global war on 3 fronts. For example, Ukraine, the Pacific region, maybe China and Taiwan, in the Middle East. Anarchy, culture clashes, race, socioeconomic, government inability or effort to control, supply system interruptions. It could be from weather, or it could be either a man-made or natural or technological type disaster. Remember the words of former President Reagan: every day that we live, we're 9 meals from starvation. Local level, your 5 mile radius, it could be an economic unemployment impact with average local income. Let's say where you're at, it's at 27,000. All right. Any kind of economic or unemployment type events based off of your county's average income would mean that most people on that income, they do not have the funds to prepare by putting back a lot of food. And because of that, if they are impacted by an economic downturn or unemployment. If they have a family, they're going to need food. So if they don't have income, where are they going to turn for food? It could be your neighborhood. Food availability, again, for unemployment, the poor, homeless, driven by number one above. Grocery store availability versus influx of stranded tourists from natural and man-made disasters. Where I live at is a very high, I'm about 15 miles from a very high tourist location. It's one of the most visited locations in America during tourist season. If an event would occur when there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people visiting, if an event would occur, say a CME or an EMP, that would strand them. Grocery stores are stocked for a 3-day supply. There's way more people than the amount of groceries that are stocked. And now we're going to have a food crisis within probably 24 hours. External threats enter the community area: gangs, rioters, anarchists. Patriots' ability to maintain conservative control of the county and area during or without rule of law. How are you going to manage your home and your community when you have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of strangers roaming, trying to find food, and they're stranded? Our goal is to always be left of bang. Okay, left of bang is proactive. Bang is the event. Right of bang is reactive. What is your reaction to the event that occurred when you didn't suspect it, and 48 hours later you're starting to figure out that something happened, and you're stranded and you can't get cash from an ATM, and the grocery stores are out of food and your vehicle is now immobile? What are you going to do? What are strangers going to do? So much of the planning in this and building the 5-mile radius is based around good intelligence or information. Good plans are built and exercised and utilized based around training, equipment, capabilities, available manpower, threats, and intelligence. Your objective is to make yourself and your living area a hard target to the best extent possible. A soft target will get you and everyone else killed. A good example, if it's a political protest or a breakdown between political parties, political divisions, if you have individuals who support one political party and they're roaming down a street near you, and you have political stickers in your yard or signs or stickers on your automobile, you just became a target. Okay? Our goal here is to get you thinking and moving forward to change habits, trends, and predictability to become a hard target. Create a library of printed documents covering most topics in preparedness: food, water, shelter, security, medicine, fish meds, essential oils, and plant meds, self-help projects, solar maps of my state and 2 states around me in every direction. You can get these for free. These are just the primary topics that I collect information on. Also monitor and collect information on crime statistics, major road projects and construction, or events that impact geographical terrain that could restrict movement, or any other facet of my life or your life in your case. You have to think outside the box. You have to be able to see, look around you, what is different, what has changed, what in your environment could impact your 5Ds and your way of life. Again, think outside the box. Routes. You should have identified at a minimum a primary and alternate route. You should consider a third route as well to everywhere you go: going to work, going to the store, going to pick up little Johnny at school. Wherever it is that you go on a routine basis, you need to have alternate routes that you can take, and often frequent going different routes, so that you are not predictable and anyone that may be trying to run surveillance on you to your times and routes, you're not predictable. But what if you can't drive the routes and you must walk? Have you surveyed the routes recently? What if something happens? There's a natural disaster or a man-made disaster at a grocery store or where you work at, and your vehicle is immobile or you cannot transit using an automobile. Are you prepared to throw on your backpack that you keep in your car with gear, with soft shoes, weather applicable coats, clothing, some water, energy bars, extra medicine? Because if you have to walk home, it's going to take you longer to do so than your frequent drive. Okay, most delays and shortfalls are along your path that you did not plan for. How many bridges, right? How many water obstacles must you cross? How are you going to get across them if you're on foot, especially if the bridges are closed down? How about high crime areas where walking through could be as dangerous as driving through them? Are the routes urban, rural, or unpopulated areas? What is your plan to not stand amongst the 90% while you transit between your starting and ending points? Many of the answers to the above questions will be resolved through good intelligence and information. When you develop your plan, develop an area study, okay? You must know the process before you know and understand the information. Much of the information in the 5 mile radius is based around processes that we used in the military, okay? And there's numerous publications and information available to you now on the internet where you can go. I basically have taken this information and I've civilianized it, okay? The intelligence you gather in the following 6 areas will help you answer questions that will assist in building your plans, developing key intelligence points that will support your overall final plan. This is information you expect and envision right now. So, what are your conditions and vulnerabilities? Here are the 6 basic stages in what we call the area study. And many times in my former life, when I was working in special operations, myself and another individual, a buddy system, or sometimes 3 or 4 individuals would transit to a foreign country in the planning phase, and we would basically do this information, the 6 areas that I'm getting ready to cover, and we would put this information together, and based on the time frame that we plan to bring in a bigger package or larger number of people and resources, we would come to a decision as to was it safe or not, what are the threats, and how would we mitigate the threats to bring these packages in. So we're talking about the physical study, human terrain, military police, critical infrastructure, economy and finance, and politics and governance. What does all this mean? Wow, it sounds like a lot of work. Well, a lot of this information you can actually do from home in your research, overhead mapping, and so forth. So the physical study, it's a study of terrain and often called a topography or terrain analysis. It involves mapping and analyzing the 3-dimensional surface characteristics of the Earth, including elevation, slope, and orientation. It examines both natural features, mountain, rivers, and valleys, and man-made structures to understand the layout of the land. Key aspects of using the physical study: engineering construction is used to determine the foundation stability, drainage patterns, and construction costs. Military operations analyzes, covers concealment and mobility for tactical planning. Okay, this would be for civil operations. All right, we're now civilianizing things. Environmental planning, it identifies floodplains, erosion risk, and informs urban development. Geomorphology. Geomorphology. That's a big word. Scientific study of landforms, their formation through erosion, deposition, and development. The physical terrain includes mountains, hills, valleys, depressions, hydrology like lakes, rivers, streams, swamps, marshes, irrigation ditches, and other natural or man-made barriers and obstacles. Identify and know choke points and hazardous areas. Why do you give a hoot about some of the things on the physical study? Because if you live in an area that has the potential for flooding, or if you have dams and things of that nature, that if the dam is blown by the threat, are you going to flood out? What elevation do you need to be at to survive? Or if you have a large natural disaster from rain, okay? If there's no one controlling the water flow, are you going to flood out? The human terrain. The human terrain, it's a method that analyzes the social, culture, political, economic conditions of a local population to help forces or organization understand the human environment. It focuses on mapping social networks, local leadership, and culture behaviors to improve stability operations, counterinsurgency effectiveness, and reduce casualties. Okay, it's used to identify who are the local leaders, assess tribal royalties, and determine the reliability of informants. Decision making helps leaders understand the potential social impacts on a community. Again, this is determining all the different cultures that are in your community and how changes are going to impact them. Civil operations used to identify community needs, reducing friction between local populations of religious, socioeconomic, racial, tribal, gangs, and other groups. Data gatherings involve structured interviews, questionnaires, and observation to create social profiles of specific neighborhoods or tribes. Remember, these are the people who live in your community and may be within your 5-mile radius. You need to know how they tick. Behavioral prediction identifies culture indicators that allow for the de-escalation of conflict, as seen in all levels of law enforcement when available. Identify the local media, their bias, and how people get news information, print, radio, television, and or social media. The geographic terrain. Terrain is the physical natural features of a specific land surface, including its elevation, slope, and orientation. It describes the shape and character of the ground, such as mountains, plains, valleys, or deserts, and it's used to analyze an area's suitability for human settlement, agriculture, military, if applicable, civil operations, and transportation. Key aspects of terrain. Topography. Terrain defines the roughness of the landscape, covering features like elevation changes, slopes, and landform. Components, it includes natural elements like mountains, valleys, plains, and coastlines. Geographical importance, it influences climate, temperature, precipitation, hydrology, the water flow, and vegetation patterns. These are all important because if you have to relocate from your home to a higher altitude, elevation, if you will, and you have to grow food and garden at this new location, how hard is it going to be for you to build shelters and grow food? Human impact. It affects where people build homes, agriculture practices like terracing or contour plowing, and infrastructure development. The human terrain intelligence requirements. Human terrain intelligence, it's specific data points regarding local populations such as culture, beliefs, social structures, power dynamics, and motivations that civil or military commanders need to improve decision making in irregular warfare or stability operation. It maps the human terrain to support counterinsurgency, aiming to understand local population to reduce conflict. Key aspects of human terrain intelligence requirements. Targeted social information focuses on identifying local leaders, tribal connections, political disputes, economic conditions, and religious factors. You may be scratching your head thinking, well, why does any of this apply to me at my home and my community? It all matters. Support for command decisions, okay, enables military commanders or civil leaders to predict, manage, and respond to population reactions during operations. Data collection methods includes qualitative methods such as interviews, culture observations, and focus groups conducted by specialized teams. The political terrain intelligence requirements. Political terrain, it refers to specific prioritized information needs regarding the social, culture, political dynamics of an operation area, intended to help leaders understand the human environment, predict behavior, and achieve mission objectives. All right, the key components and meanings. Human geography and society, analysis of tribal boundaries, ethnicity, languages, and religious groups in an area. Remember, in America today, in many neighborhoods, states, counties, we have a populace today that, in often cases, is multilingual. Power dynamics and actors, identification of key leaders, influencers, formal and informers, such as politicians, clergy, and business leaders, and their motivations. You could add gang leaders, things of that nature on this list. Socio-political dynamics, understanding public opinion, sentiments of the local population, and sources of cohesion or division within a community. Operational impact, assessing how these factors affect the security, stability, and success of military, corporate, or civil projects. Economic intelligence requirements, the collection, analysis, strategic use of economic, financial, and commercial data, mostly from open sources, to support decision making, secure competitive advantages, and protect national or corporate interests. It involves transforming raw information into actionable insights to anticipate market trends and mitigate risk. Key aspects of economic intelligence. The purpose is to aim to reduce uncertainty and strategic decision making and enhance competitiveness. The three pillars, it relies on strategic watch, collection, and analysis, security, protecting the assets. 3, influence, active shaping of the environment. The scope is it covers data on production, consumption, technological data, and government policies. Okay, and if you are in the WROL without rule of law, you're going to have the mindset to be flexible to understand when and at what times these may or may not apply. Security intelligence requirements, formally defined question, topic, or knowledge gap that guides an organization's threat intelligence team in collecting and analyzing and producing actionable information to defend against threat. It ensures that security efforts are focused on the most relevant risks, such as an adversary's tactics, vulnerabilities, emerging threats, rather than collecting all available data, which can lead to overwhelming and non-actionable noise. The core concept and purpose. Actionable questions. They are essentially questions from stakeholders like CISO that, when answered, fill a knowledgeable gap and allow the security team to take specific action. Okay, and these positions are within your community. Who has skills in specific areas? All right, who is going to go outside of your secure community out into areas outside of your outer layer to basically get a flavor of the day? What has changed out in the community? So focus on priorities. They align threats intelligence with business priorities, ensuring that limited resources are used to defend against the most likely or impactful threats. Proactive defense. They transition or organization from reactive monitoring to proactive, helping to anticipate, detect, and respond to threats before they cause damage. This is your left of bang. You want to be proactive and not reactive. Your defense intelligence requirements basically is what is around you from a military perspective. You may have ROTC units in your schools. You may have a military base near you. You may have a National Guard. What is around you from a federal and state perspective regarding military and so forth. So those are the 6 areas, okay? And the 5-mile radius, the conclusion is the key to success, short and long term. It's evergreen, okay? That means it's a continuous assessment process to augment all preparedness and surviving. A compilation of key information to enhance community risk assessment and threat indicators that will allow you to mitigate. Allows focus on key areas and indicators that you need to focus. Team focus in multiple areas identified will help consolidate the best information needed to build security apparatus to protect your community. Validate collected information to solidify what could be a potential threat to you and your family and your community. Rack and stack vulnerabilities to focus on most important threats down to lesser possible threats. I have charts in book 1 that give you examples of this. A single ignored threat can mean the difference in an attack from your community to an insider threat. Sharing all your internal information, locations, number of personnel, food quantities, locations, to security posture and your arming strength, meaning the number of people that you are capable of posting out for security that can protect and defend your community. The bottom line is you are the difference. Invest your time wisely now or pay the consequences later. It's your decision. And what will it be? The numerous times that I've taught this class, the 5-mile radius, I see folks writing lots and lots and lots of notes. And then when we talk about in the larger class form of the 5-mile radius, and we go into setting up your communications and building pace plans and quads, oftentimes I've heard from so many people, this is too much work, I'm not going to do it. Well, you basically have a choice. You can stay at home and eat ding dongs and Twinkies and watch Fox News and be able to tell everyone all the bad things that are going on in the world around you, but yet you're doing nothing about it. All right. And that's what it comes down to, is how much effort are you willing to invest now, as Sun Tzu said. 90% of war is how well or that you prepare or don't prepare today before the battle starts. So what is going to be your decision? That's something that you've got to think about and focus on. Okay. So I hope you got something from this. And again, this is a short rendition crash course into the basics, of the 5-mile radius. Okay. And the 3-hour to 5-hour class on this topic, it is broken down much further with far more examples of things within the 6 areas of your area study. So you decide what you want to invest in, the safety of you, your family, and your community. Okay. If you like this information, please hit like. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And as you can tell, it's a 45-minute video of information. I tried to press it down to the minimum I could to get the basics out to you. So if you've made it to this point, congratulations to you. So be blessed. and keep your head on a swivel. More and more crime and crazy stuff continues happening. I just read this morning where someone was going through a drive-through at a restaurant at a local, I think it was a Steak and Shake, maybe, I believe. Anyway, and they got in a dispute over an order of onion rings, and the driver of the car pulled out a gun and shot the worker through the drive-through window. So you have to be safe everywhere you go, and you have to stay left of bang, and you have to continually run through your mind all the possibilities that could happen. Maybe not directly to you, but in the area that you're in, and you've got to decide how am I going to get out of here? What's the best way to get out of here and get back to where I'm secure? So keep the faith, and remember, we are blessed people, and we live in the greatest nation on earth. So always have hope. Till next time, Bravo Echo out.